Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings and welcome to the Jewel Network. The Jewel Network is a radio frequency of continuous streaming knowledge and wisdom, which promotes and sustains the activation of the present evolutionary process of immortality and the unfolding of the God Self within the evolving planetary society presently on planet Earth. The Jewel Network is committed to teaching the sciences of life and the science of living. By cultivating the mind of a scientist, you will be able to extract the very best the current century has to offer. You are listening to Truth or Consequences with your host, physicist, historian, and metaphysician, Dr. Delbert Blair. Join Dr. Blair here each Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Jewel Network, hosted by blogtalkradio.com and thejewelnetwork.net.
Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome to Truth for Consequences 2012. We are here live and direct, right here on the Jewel Network, where we are justifiably enchanted with enlightened living. My name is Maurice Thompson, and I'm your co-host here with none other than the man himself, Dr. Delbert Blair. Dr. Blair, how are you tonight?
Well, been a long time, Brother Maurice Thompson. How are you doing? I'm doing fine now. Been a very interesting ride the last month, but I think that's pretty much true with everybody. I don't know if they've been through what I've been through. But anyway, congratulations on your journey overseas. It's good to have you back. I very much missed our audience, and I'm sure from the calls I've got, they've missed you and they've missed me too. So it's a pleasure. There's so much to talk about, and I'm sure this next hour and a half will zoom by.
Indeed, indeed. Very happy to have the stateside legs back, and very happy to be back with the good folks and as well as with you. So I know that we've had a whole lot of stuff flying across the skies, literally and figuratively, the past couple of weeks. So by all means, I'm ready and down to roll up the sleeves and get going. We also got our callers lining up as well, so make sure that you get the chance.
Well, I'm glad to hear they haven't deserted us, too. And I've got a lot of announcements to make. I'll try to make that midway for those who are still be joining us probably during the next 15 minutes. But I will say this. I've stated for a long time that this was a year of crisis. This was a year of turning point. This was a year where if the planet ascends, and it's going to, and we ascend with it, it's going to take a lot of diligence, due diligence, and a lot of inner perspective searching. I'm saying that that was an understatement. The things that are happening on this planet are almost unbelievable, and I'm just going to go through just a few without even talking about some of the things that are just happening in some of our big cities here in Chicago and every other daggone thing. Yesterday, there was a mile-wide avalanche that hit in northern Norway. Now you say, well, so what happens in northern Norway? Many times I tell people when I'm on your show and doing other lectures that you have to keep up with world events. You can't just have your head in the air or your head in the ground. You know, again, your head's in the ground, you know it end is sticking up. You have to see what's happening planetary-wise to get the full impact of what is going on. So yesterday, a mile-wide avalanche hit there in northern Norway. There's a mountain there called Svarbenga Mountain. Now, people are on that mountain all the time. It's a ski resort, so on and so forth. 5 people were swept to their death. There were 13 people there, which is an interesting number than 2. And there was no warning. These are expert skiers and stuff. It just hit. Boom. Now, avalanches can just hit, but most of the time there's powdered snow. You get warnings. There are airplanes that test that. No warning. The thing seemed solid, and suddenly it wasn't. There was a huge spear in the sun's corolla. Now, we're going from Norway to the sun. It was spotted, and we're going to try and get that picture up on our net by the end of the night, and hopefully again. Observing, it looks like a large spaceship. Now, many viewers say that they agree it looks like a large spaceship. But think of what that means. If it is or isn't, what the heck is this thing? It doesn't seem to be like the sunspot activity and these things that are going on, these solar prominences. It looks like a ship. And the ship seems to be almost maybe 20 miles wide. I mean, that's impossible. But I'm saying now, impossible is a word we're going to have to stop using because the impossible is happening this year. The impossible seems to be happening each minute we're looking at again. They've tested the ice there in Greenland, and of course there's a huge ice sheet that covers most of Greenland. If we get 2 more days of 1 more degree temperature, it will begin to melt. It's already beginning to show breaks. Imagine what happens if the Greenland ice sheet begins to melt. Just think about that. Just think about the waters it would melt into, and where are those waters going to go when they begin to be like flooding today? And of course, there was flooding today in Mississippi. I'm sure many of the people down there may be listening. They may be calling back about the Mississippi River and what's going on down there again, too. We've had record-breaking temperatures now from March 9th to the 19th. These record-breaking temperatures have come in Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, Illinois. It means, again, that places that normally would have spring are now in midsummer, and it means also that that is going to cause crops to begin to bloom, to go out of season. And I think of some of those prophecies, that flowers will bloom out of season, that animals will not bear their young, that there will be earthquakes in diverse places, that there will be wars and rumors of wars. All of these things seem to be having or coming true to the extent now that I say, if there were biblical prophecies, and many people who believe in the Bible completely, some of these things would make me have to say, I got to believe too. Because all these events, crazy as they sound, dispositioned as they sound, different as they sound, are happening. From Oklahoma to Texas, they had winds, rains, and storms, a whole front, covering again around 3 states, winds, rains, and storms. Now, this one really got me. They had previously prepared for an earthquake drill down in South America, and it happened to be in Mexico. 1 hour after that earthquake drill, the towns of Osaka and Guerrero was hit by a 7.8 earthquake. Now, they've tried to tone that thing down to a 7.3 and a 7.6. The first reports, and I went up and checked again there with the NCIT, it was 7.8. Why in the world did they have an earthquake drill special at that special time? What did they know they didn't tell the people, or what caused that daggone thing? And of course, they're saying not many deaths. That's not what I'm hearing. I'm beginning to get reports, because I know people down in Mexico City, too. I know people all over the place. They're saying that there is a death toll. We'll have to see what the 10 o'clock news or what later on the 10 o'clock blues has to show with that one. They've got snow in Arizona. Remember the prophecy, too? Snow in the deserts. They had an earthquake that measured some 6.6 in Papua New Guinea, and that's the third one in that region of Papua New Guinea this year, 6.6. The first one was 6.3. This is now the third one. I forgot what the second one was, but it seems to be rising in what is the intensity of it again. The deepest ocean waters around Antarctica are very cold. They're now finding that some of these deepest ocean waters are dissipating. They're dissipating and disappearing. Is it because the temperature is absorbing them because the waters there are getting too hot? Or where is the water going to? You just don't have waters disappear around a whole area there in Antarctica. But then you watch Antarctica, and mark my words again, prophecy will make their prediction I make there. Keep looking out for Vostok, the Vostok Sea, and all these different lies that they're going to come out about drilling down in the Vostok Sea so that they can begin to measure what has happened previously. They're saying for every, I think it is, they say every 20 to 30 feet, it represents almost 200 years, and they can begin to see what was around 200 years ago by just drilling down there. I say it's I can't say it's the biggest lie because they lie about everything. Here's another deception. What they're down there is that there is an ocean down there called the Vostok Sea, and if people have good memories, roughly about 2002, they had to evacuate a bunch of scientists that were there because the scientists, whatever happened, they were losing their minds down there. they had to retrofit a helicopter so that it wouldn't freeze up, the oil and the fuel would not freeze up, to rescue those people off of there. They took them out to a hospital supposedly in Philadelphia, and you haven't heard anything about that since. The next day, nobody was in there from that rescue mission. Now they're again talking about the Vostok Sea. Hint, hint, that is supposedly, by metaphysical standards, going inside the earth. That sea is inside the lip of the hollow earth. Remember, you heard it here first, okay? There's another thing that happened, too. There's what they call a super boat. Now, that's positively charged lightning that goes from the ground to the air. That's what hit Tulsa, Oklahoma at 3:33 a.m. 3:33 a.m. To me, this gets back into what we start calling Illuminati. This starts getting back to what we call man-made Illuminati, using degrees of consciousness and using mathematics to try and bring on certain aspects. I say it's a possibility. I wouldn't discard it. There's a place called Townsville, Australia. It was hit by a freak microburst, winds at 70 miles per hour, no funnel clouds, no nothing, people going about their business, and suddenly this thing sweeps along. It swept cars into walls. It knocked over people. What the death toll is, I have no idea. No warning, no nothing, no clouds, no funnel clouds, just what they call a freak microburst. There was a tornado that hit San Antonio, which is southwest of San Antonio. Supposedly there were 70 properties damaged, but the thing is, again, no warning on this tornado. It just suddenly swoops down, hits, and goes back up. Fortunately, it didn't stay on the ground long, but again, no clouds, no nothing, just a tornado hitting. And I'm going to begin to wind this down because I could stay on the next half an hour with just some of the things that are happening. But they've got fire in the sky. Now, there was a movie that was called Fire in the Sky. These solar flares and these prominences now are happening almost on a daily basis. And these solar prominences, these CMEs, of course, as we talked about on shows previously, are off the chart. There's no record of this. You know, they used to tell us that if a solar flare or a prominence to the degree and intensity that's what's happening now would have hit the Earth in, say, in the 1900s or 1913, they said everybody would be fried, the Earth would be fried to a crisp, and everybody with it would be dead. Now we're living with this happening on a daily basis. Some of us are dying, but not from the solar prominences that we know of, and the Earth sure is still here. So what are we heading into? What is this criteria of change that is obnoxious to the consciousness of what we thought of before, proving our scientists can be deadly wrong and very stupid and ignorant because they begin to measure on a scale of what they think the sun is, what they think we're doing, and yet it's not doing any of those things. Rather than to admit that, they just now say, we don't have any answers, so as long as we don't have any answers, enjoy the sunlight. Well, I'm telling everybody, enjoy the sunlight. Bask in all of this, because if we get what they're getting over in Europe, and it's not just karmic, that means if things are going around, then we might be getting what they're getting there as we're getting now. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But again, they don't seem to understand what can happen anyway, so who's to say it can't? And last thing I want to get into is two very, very interesting things. They have found that lasers can be useful in deterring lightning bolts. They seem to have begun to shoot some of these lasers and hit lightning bolts, and when they hit the lightning bolts dissipated or changed direction like they could steer it. That was an interesting tidbit that I found. And then here's the last one there. They have found a mummy in Peru, in the Alps there, and the mummy had a head that was over 12 feet tall. Think about that, was a giant that this came from. And they say there were giants in the earth. Well, now we're beginning to see fulfillment of that. And this thing was mummified, which means that somebody had worked it. Think about all these things and then ask yourself, what is mundane? What are we really doing here again? Are these really times of crisis or not? I think we have to say yes. Oh, there was one other thing I had to throw in because it was so ironic and so out the box, because it shows me another tendency too. They're now banning in Philadelphia, it was Mayor Nutter out there that did that, Bloomberg there in New York, the feeding of homeless people. And they're telling you it's now beginning to be against the law. They're saying because you might be giving them bad food. They're saying you can't even give them water because the water might be well. But again, who ever heard of not being able to feed the homeless and actually going to jail or breaking the law for doing so? I'm saying again, the things we're hearing now are almost, they're so ironic that if you dreamed about this 40 years ago, people would say you're out of your minds. Well, they were saying a long time ago that I was a little bit neurotic. I now admit